Hello, Internet, and welcome to another Wednesday serial. This time, I want to talk about X-Force. So today, what I'm going to be talking about is the Fabian Nicieza. God, I hope I pronounced that right. I tried looking it up. Anyways, Fabian's run on X-Force, which is lengthy and goes through phases, and it's pretty interesting because this is clearly from earlier in his career. And I am talking about X-Force, though. Before I get started, I'm going to try to flash covers. I really feel X-Force begins with New Mutants 98, which is, of course, the first appearance of Gideon and Domino and some other character. But 98 and then 99 and then 100 are really pushing right into X-Force number 1 very directly. At that point, you actually have very little to do with the New Mutants. A lot of the main cast of New Mutants has left. A lot of the ones that are staying are obviously still there. But we're introduced to the characters that make up the X-Force, if you will. And I'm pulling out cover number 1 because I can't just show it. Because to get everybody on the team, I have to show you the gatefold cover. Or not gatefold, just the wraparound. I'm sorry. I misused terms. I'm sick. Bear with me. Anyways, so for those who don't know, let's see here. Oh my god, I'm all backwards. So, whoop. There's Mr. Cable. He's the big metal guy that has a problem. He has a solo series. He's the main kahuna. Then there's Feral. Is an interesting character, especially because it feels like she's replacing Wolfsbane, but not really. Then there's Boom Boom, or who becomes Boomer. Thunderbird, who's the brother of the Thunderbird of like 3 issues of Uncanny X-Men. Shatterstar. And then Cable. Cannonball. Man, I'm having a day. Oh, and Domino's there. Except, is it Domino? It's not. Spoilers. There's just spoilers here today. You're not escaping it. So, X-Force 1 starts off pretty big. With a lot of plot developments coming. And it moves really quickly. Issue 2, really interesting. Deadpool's back. And it's Deadpool versus Weapon X Kane. Marvel is really pushing Kane being Weapon X at this point. This issue is really about that. It almost has nothing to do with X-Force, which is a really weird move for the second issue of a new run that they pushed to have this out of New Mutants. And you have this bit with GW Bridge and Feral coming in, and so it's like S.H.I.E.L.D. on X-Force and this fight going on. And with Deadpool coming, we hear more about Mr. Tolliver, who's kind of their main antagonist at this point, except not really. And Vanessa is mentioned. And that comes up again really quick later. And then we get to issue 3, which is pretty major. You'll see Spider-Man in the corner here. That was a big deal for me because I was trying to collect this appearance when I was a kid. But this gets to Juggernaut and this Black Tom showing up and this whole situation at the World Trade Center, which comes over to Sabotage, which continues. And this whole issue is, you flip it like this. It's kind of annoying. I wonder how that goes digitally now. But we have this big deal at the World Trade Center, and X-Force becomes kind of public knowledge then. And it's a problem because we're coming out of the Claremont era pretty hard at this point. So this idea of this like task force of mutants really frightens the public, and it kind of sets back Xavier's intentions. So it puts Cable and the mutants that he has with him under his tutelage marked in a way. And then they come up against the Mutant Liberation Front, which is a kind of an ongoing theme. They kind of fight these mutants on the fringe because they're on the fringe themselves, so it's like two sides of a coin, but almost barely. Um, we have a fight with Soren, who shows up as part of the Mutant Liberation Front. That one was dumb. I don't know. We keep going. We get some like problems with Cable going forward. We Yeah. Let's see your turning point. Oh yeah. More of the like faux politics at this point, and things kind of just continue boiling, and we kind of get little. You don't really get character moments. We get little plot bits and little bits of character moving forward. And this is all still Rob Liefeld at this point. And then we get to issue 10, and this is actually a big setup for that big event that everybody loves. Oh my god, Executioner Saw. And in here it's revealed that Strife has Cable's face and that he's Cable's clone. And that's a big deal because that plays into a lot of like the New Mutant characters that don't like Cable, is because like Strife killed the parents of one of them and tortured another one of them, and they don't like him. But he did that so that they wouldn't like Cable, to create division amongst the group. So there's that, and then we get a little more playback with Domino revealed, and it's a big Deadpool cover, and this is a big issue for the Mr. Tolliver side of things, separate from the MLF or the Strife parts coming through. And in this one, it's revealed that Domino is not Domino, it's Vanessa, who is Copycat, who's a shapeshifter. And the entire time we've been following Domino, it's actually been Vanessa. It's an interesting idea, but something that really follows X-Force in these early years, is the plotting, especially in this first year with Rob Liefeld, is hard. Like, there's a lot of ideas, and there's some cool stuff in there, like that idea. But it doesn't really play through. We don't have any character motivation or character understanding. Like X-Force is together, but why is Shatterstar here? Why is Feral here? We kind of know why Cable's here, because he kind of came in before everything, and it was before Rob Liefeld had as much reign on the book, so it was kind of written by Louise Simonson still, until it wasn't, but it kind of forced Cable to have a little more chutzpah moving forward, plus Cable had appearances elsewhere, which helped flesh him out immensely. And a lot of the characters before, since this is transfer for New Mutants, it transfers more easily. Issue 12 here, we see a lot about the externals come up. And we find out Cannonball, Samuel Guthrie, is an external. What does that mean? Externals are the small group of mutants who are supposedly immortal. But what does that really mean? I don't know. And anymore, what does that mean? Who cares, right? They all are. So, and then 13 highlighted something that was interesting to me. Cable at this time was often presented as like Terminator looking, where like half of his face sometimes was Terminator-esque and sometimes not. So like sometimes full robot, sometimes not. Just very weird that they do that. We continue forward. And then we get this big Cable Deadpool fight, which is a big rematch from New Mutants 98, really, because they kind of assuaded those two fighting since, even though there's been other fights along the way. And this is actually a setup to play through so that Deadpool can have his own mini in a few months, which is kind of the real resolution of the Mr. Tolliver situation. Though in here, Tolliver dies, because Cable kills him by blowing up the helicopter. Though it's the kind of death, it's like a Batman villain death. It's like the helicopter explodes, and then it lands in the water, and you're like, well, he's probably coming back. But he doesn't. Ever, so far as I know. I tried looking it up, though it's Marvel, so there might have been something somewhere, but I believe he actually died there. It's kind of weird, actually. And then you get to Executioner's Song. Some of you might have seen, I tweeted a whole thing about that. Actually, it was a really weird 90s event. A lot of going on, but it really kind of is X-Force's event because Strife is at the center of it. Strife has connections to other characters. There are a few other elements going on, playing off of X Factor's ties to the government, which is always their play. And then X-Men are involved because it's a big hubbubaloo. They have to be. But X-Force is really at the heart of this because it's dealing with Strife. And Strife is really their guy because he's the clone of Cable. I mean, it can't not be. And we get a little in here about him fighting Apocalypse when Apocalypse was just regenerated, so a little weaker. And then this big show-off between the two of them, the final chapter. And Executioner's Song is done. Honestly, it just kind of ends. I don't know. And you get the big Summers family to do it here. If you want more on Executioner's Song, go look that up. I don't want to dwell on it too much here. I don't think it was that great, but I think coming out of it, the book is better. So a little bit before Executioner's Song, Liefeld left, and Cthulhu's taken over the book. It's actually really interesting because the X-Force issues are Cthulhu, and some of those are his earliest, so far as I can tell, professional work. Like, I think he had a little bit here or there, but like on a big Marvel book or something. Like, and not only is an ensemble cast, suddenly he's doing this event, he's drawn a bazillion characters. You can actually see at certain points, I don't want to say he falls short, but relative to other stuff he had done, like in prior pages or whatnot, he falls short. Trying to balance all that. And I don't know, it's just really interesting to see someone who's a superstar now and seeing this assignment that was thrown at them way too early. And honestly, probably without enough planning time. I imagine, like, this is the start of book where delays happen because artists take forever to do it, and because they're drawing a bazillion friggin' characters. And I mean, here's this guy. So far as I know, because what I saw, it didn't look like there was any real delays or anything. Keeping up with it, but I mean, I don't know. It's clearly not Cthulhu's best work, though. I mean, much to his credit in a lot of ways. I'm not saying this is bad art in any way, but dude's gotten better and better and better. And I mean, by the time you get to Batman, it's a whole another level. Plus, coloring has changed and makes his stuff look way better. So, all that. Anyways, you get to after that. This is where I feel Nicieza kind of gets to retool. He's kind of moved past a lot of the initial stuff Liefeld kind of left for him, because Liefeld was plotting and doing art, and he's just kind of doing words and helping plot. I don't know where the mix is. I'm hoping to listen to some interviews, but I don't know. There's no production notes in the comics. So I found that really interesting. But 19, The Dream Divided, is where Cable is gone at the end of Executioner's Song. He's off for a while. And he's taken his time travel ship, Grey Malkin, and bye. Or he hasn't taken the ship, he's lost in time. Some BS. And then Cannonball assumes leadership of the team, and him and Professor X kind of have it out. And Xavier's like, I don't want you guys kind of doing this thing. It's creating tension for all of our other groups. You're doing this. And they kind of are keeping X-Force caged. And there's some tension around that, even with some of the X Factor characters. Like, I don't like the fact that they're sitting here because they like makeshift the danger room into like a prison cell sort of thing. They're keeping the X-Force characters there because they had fought the other groups during Executioner's Song. And it's really interesting to see that. But basically, Sam's like, you trusted us to be adults. We're going to go do our thing. We're going to go do it our own way. And so they kind of are released, but they basically off to nowhere. And they get new costumes. So Cthulhu gets to design costumes, which I think helps him draw better. I mean, he's more consistent, so having things help him be more consistent helps, as opposed to whatever the hell Liefeld does. So the art gets better, too. And so 19 marks a big churning point for the book. 20 is where that comes to fruition a bit more. The plot thread with J.W. Bridge kind of comes in, and Nick Fury's coming in. And we see characters like Richter's here again, who joins the team now that Cable is absent. Um, and so does Sunspot. Those are the two characters that left because Cable's there. Cable's gone, so they're fine. They just kind of put a pin in that. And so this big thing continues. We see war machines, and this is part 2. That was part 1 of the assault on Greymalkin. So they're going to get what they can from Cable's stuff. And it's this political incident because this is a spaceship lording over Earth. At this point, S.W.O.R.D. doesn't exist, so S.H.I.E.L.D. steps in. That's why Fury's there. And War Machine's there as a consort. I believe at this point in continuity, Iron Man is gone, and so War Machine is standing in as Iron Man because there's some confusion on that. And I didn't care enough to look it up because who would? Iron Man fans, I guess. Just that's what I took from it. I know that was that's happened multiple times, so I assume this is one of those times. There's a big fight, and we kind of get a little more of Shatterstar in here because we've never, again, really got motivation. We just know that Shatterstar is from the Mojoverse, and that he's like really good at a bunch of things, a really good fighter, but emotionally distant, whatever, kind of a jerk. But here, he slowly starts showing some signs of heroism. He wants to defend those who are innocent. He wants to defend his friends. And he's kind of fallen into this one thing. But he's going to work with the people who've helped him out. And so he has loyalty. And just those light bits are actually shown through here versus him literally just being part of the cast. It is so slight, but the difference is so magnanimous for the difference. We had the 22. This cover is ridiculous. All of them have 90s guns for comics, and I don't know. They outfox all the government officials. I don't know. It's just interesting to see this, but I feel like the book really kind of picks up around here because we're past kind of the woes of life. All right, then Domino Triumphant, she comes in and bombs Deadpool's ass. Deadpool's tracking Vanessa because he's trying to figure out about Tolliver's will. That's a big thing for but ultimately, Domino, who was following Deadpool's partially because that was the only lead he had, or she had, off of Cable disappearing. So she's using that to move forward. This is really like making Domino a character again, and this is actually the first real time we get to see Domino out because she was freed when Cable went to go kill Tolliver, and she's pissed because she's lost a year of her life. But now she has this edict to go find X-Force, and Deadpool's supposed to help lead her to them, is what she's hoping. But she doesn't know X-Force. They don't technically know her either. They've never met. And that is a really weird place to be with one of your supposed main characters 23 issues into the book. And honestly, it never really gets handled the way it should. It just kind of gets waylaid. And then I feel like we start moving forward with the what feels like real X-Force here, moving on for a while. We get kind of waylaid with Fatal Attractions. This is really big because Cable shows up again. And he literally just shows up in this issue as him, like, kicking X-Force's ass. And then they're like, yay, you're back. And then there's this 3-parter with Rainfire, who has requisitioned this new MLF, and they have captured Senator Kelly. And so X-Force is going to go save this person who hates mutants. And X-Force, through the process of everything, loses Sunspot again and loses Feral. But at the end of this, Feral is like pushed by Senator Kelly to be like, because he's like, I know you killed your mom, I know you killed other members of your family, I know you're just the worst, and I'd rather not be saved by you than be saved by you, basically. And I'm just like, okay. So this character that just kind of showed up in New Mutants is now like, what happened? So that's where that ends. And so X-Force is down 2 members, but we have Cable here, and that's where that ends. And then Rainfire's kind of defeated, but just kind of ports away. And then we get a weird one shot where we get character development for Shatterstar. He's supposed to be taking a day off while other characters are doing whatever, but he gets pushed into this thing where he has to fight Adam X to save who is his wife. But there's this whole thing about wife on Mojo World doesn't mean the same thing. It's just who you reproduce with, and that's already chosen. It's not like love or anything. It's like you can't have another relationship is what's implied. And it's interesting, but I don't know. And then Adam X is supposed to be this kindred spirit, but Adam X is ridiculous even compared to Shatterstar. So I don't know. It's really cool, and you see more of those bits I talked about Shatterstar like really shine through. And now we have a much better grasp of who he is and why he's sticking around. And also, the wife of his was never actually there. It's like some hologram based on something Arcade found, which is weird. But they deal with that. And then 31, some ongoing plot that's been going is that Siren has the drinking problem. And I think I forgot to mention Siren joined the group that happened forever ago. So, there you go. Yeah, she has a drinking problem, but Thunderbird's trying to help her with it, and then she has this whole thing, and you find out about the secret history between Black Tom and Sean Cassidy, Banshee, and kind of their whole drama. And that comes from this issue. And that actually, this issue, I think, actually has a lot of impact for a number of characters going forward, because that's actually a pretty big touchstone for the X universe. And so it's really interesting to see that go ahead. And Juggernaut's actually in here, and he watches and is actually happy that Black Tom Cassidy is carted off by the officials, because Black Tom made peace with some of his family, which he knows has been eating it up. It's a very weird issue. There's no punching or anything. It's a lot of drama, but interesting departure. And it's also interesting that now we're getting like big action and then kind of drama, big action and then drama, and that kind of continues, which I think is healthy for the book. Moving forward, there's this crossover, Child's Play, which crosses over with the New Warriors. So I only read the 2 issues, so I kind of got bits and pieces. But interesting stuff here. This is actually a really interesting play, and I'm sure it played through better than most crossovers because Fabian was writing both books. So I think he was just kind of like taking his chocolate and his peanut butter and mashing it together for a story and doing that. And then we have the Rage of Richter kind of coming to head, because even though he knows Cable didn't kill his dad, he still feels like he did, and I don't know, gets over it. But they're also building to this issue with Nimrod, and this is a big fight, and this is a big deal, because this is taking out a Sentinel that is supposedly like a decade or so ahead of the technology curve that they have. And if they don't take this thing out, they're going to mass produce them, and things are going to decimate, and yada yada. So that goes forward. Then we have this issue. The cover is actually a really terrible representation of what happens. This is a drama issue, and this is kind of the closing of the Externals arc for the most part. So Cannonball is here, and he's dating Boomer, kind of. They don't actually seem to do anything. So they're like, we like each other, so we hang around each other more than the other characters, vaguely. There you go. I think they kissed once. But he's been feeling kind of cold because he doesn't know about this living forever thing. And then 3 Externals show up at his doorstep when he's visiting home with his mother. And they have this whole thing. This guy who's all spiny here is one of the 3 Externals, and he's mad because he's dying because he contracted the legacy virus, which is roughly fair, but he's trying to beat up Sam about it because they're trying to bring him into this externals fold, and he doesn't want anything to do with it. And basically, Sam talks to them, and he's like, "Look, this whole living for everything, the way you guys go about your lives, is kind of worthless to me because I want to live for the day and live for the people around me. And you guys are very cold and distant. It's like you're barely living at all." They have this whole philosophical wudjamaju, and they walk away with, "He's dead." No one seems to really care. And the other two externals are like, "We should learn to live because we might die tomorrow because of this virus now." And just like the idea of death allows them to live again. It's like a really bad Sandman issue. I don't know. Maybe I'm being mean, but it's an interesting idea, but it just doesn't really play through it. I don't feel like the characters ever really. It's hard to like. Sam's supposedly, like, I think in his early 20s, and this idea that, like, he'll live forever, but he's still in his early 20s. Like, dude's not even 40 yet. Like, I don't think he's felt the effects of age or missed the effects of aging while others around him are going through it. He still has Perky McPerktits next to him. Like, it doesn't register. So, yeah, it's a story told for something too young. It felt very anime. Then we get the crossover with the Phalanx Covenant. Yeah. And then we get this weird bit with Grey Malkin becomes like sentient, like partly, and then it takes off for parts unknown. And that's that. It's a weird issue. And then we get into a big fight. So Farrell's sister has been captured, and so X-Force knows Farrell is like coming out of the woodwork, and they're trying to figure out what's going on. They want to make sure that her sister's going to get a fair trial, but in the process of it, we learn that Cable's a lawyer, which is weird, but sure, why not? And also we have this like weird comeback moment where like Sam does not like Farrell because she tore into him once, and so a lot of the others are like, we want to see justice done, and with all the groups shouting against mutants because the mutants on trial, they want to see her hung for anything. They kind of want to push against it, but it's this whole to do. Basically, through fighting it out, you find out that Farrell had been killing her family off for years when she was young, and now she was trying to cover the crime. And then in the end of this, she gets arrested and put away. So her sister's fine, and that's where we leave it, which makes sense for a two-parter. That's where you should leave it. But I mean, there's definitely threads there to play on. But it's also crazy to me that this character, that was such a main part of X-Force for most of its initial run, is suddenly just one of the worst villains that they ever faced. And it's just like, what the happened? And then we switch over, and we get a little bit about Thunderbird talking to Emma Frost, because he was one of the Hellions, and she's taking over Gen X now, but he's basically saying like, oh, you just want to do this because you don't want to feel guilty for all the dying. But she's saying like, why are you with X-Force? You have no motivation to be there, which is fair. We never really landed on one, but we get the sense that his main motivation actually now is that he super likes, Tabitha, Siren, and so that they're dating in his mind, but she doesn't think he is, so that's what's going on there. I don't know. The romance stuff is weird. And then we have one last bizarre ass issue where Rainfire comes back, and through a lot of the issues, we've had this cloaked Danny Moonstar show up, and she's part of the MLF, but we don't know really what's going on there. But she's been a major component and not written anything like what she used to be. And also, So they get into this fight with Rainfire, and then at the end it's like, I'm Sunspot and I'm evil, Brah! Just right after the feral thing, basically. And then it cuts, and we're in Age of Apocalypse in the next issue. And when we come back, it's Jeff Loeb's run, but Sunspot's there. So this feels like a non-canon throwaway something issue, which happened with a lot of the X books right before Age of Apocalypse. It was the weirdest little moment in X history, I think, the books right before Age of Apocalypse. So, yeah. There you go. There's the run.